afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Real Men of Real Estate, hosted by me, Thomas F. Chappell Jr. Here today, I have one of my very, very special guests, one of my many mentors that I've had in this real estate space. Guy is well known here in Southern California with his signature shirt, the Hawaiian shirt. Mr. Bill Tan, how are you doing today, Mr. Tan?
Fine, thank you, Thomas. Signature shirt, huh?
It's signature. Everybody knows who you are. So for those who don't know who you are here and abroad, let them get a chance to meet you. Who are you?
I'm Bill Tan. I'm from San Diego. I'm a real estate note investor and educator and have been for over 30 years.
Okay, so...
I also run a real estate club.
Really, and what's the name of the club?
We call it LAREIA. It's the Los Angeles Real Estate Investors Association.
And how long the club's been around?
That club has been around now for 11 years. I've been running real estate clubs now for over 30 years.
Wow. And how are you enjoying the clubs doing them? I mean, what's your biggest thing about doing the clubs?
Watching people grow. And I get a lot out of it because I remember things that I've forgotten.
So, how did you get started? Where did you come from as far as going from one thing to another? How did you get involved in doing real estate?
Well, I had a friend whose mother was a realtor, and when I was in my mid-20s, they would buy properties. He would fix it up, and I would help him, and then they'd resell it for more and buy another one slightly larger. And well, I'm not real big on manual labor, and I said, this is a good way to do things, though I didn't have enough guts to pull the trigger. But later on, I took some courses, and then I bought some properties out of state, and I learned that I should have taken this one more course called property management because the tenants knew more than I did. And since it was out of state, actually it was in the Phoenix area, whenever there was a problem, I would have to get up early in the morning, take the 6 a.m. flight to Phoenix, hopefully solve that problem that day and take the 10 p.m. flight back. And after the first year, I was using this realty company to find the tenants. And after the fourth tenant, I gave up. That was in a little over 14 months. 4 tenants in 14 months.
Wow. So what did you do before you got into the real estate game?
I was, I did a lot of things. I was a computer programmer, systems analyst. I then worked for LA County as a deputy probation officer, and I was doing that and this at the same time. By the way, I sold that house in Phoenix, those houses in Phoenix, carried back the financing, and I became a seller financing because I was a don't-wanter because I didn't like traveling all that time. And then I started, I took back an IOU, a mortgage against the property, and I started receiving payments every month, and I didn't hear any more about tenants and toilets and turnover any longer. I loved it. That was really the start of my real estate career because even though I had rentals, I found that I liked notes a whole lot better.
Okay. So who inspired you? I mean, who did you learn from as far as mentors and things like that?
On the note business, I learned from a lot of people, but the one I learned from the most was a guy named John Bailey. His name is Behle, and I took a 1-week-long course on how to invest and broker real estate notes, seller finance notes. And I felt like I was just taking a sip out of a fire hose. And I did that. I got back into real estate by going to exchanger meetings. And then I got my license so that I didn't have to share my proceeds, my profits with anybody else. And I've done that ever since. And we're now, it's over 30 years. Holy cow.
What is exchanger meetings?
Exchanger meeting is where real estate professionals meet to take the profits from one property that one of their clients or themselves own and move that profit into the next property that they want for either a bigger property and they don't have to pay taxes. So most people generally, a good example of this is Robert Kiyosaki. I was part of the group that taught Robert Kiyosaki about exchanging, and that he would sell his apartments, he'd pay all the commissions, closing costs, he'd go find another one, pay all the commissions and closing costs to buy the new one. Well, when you exchange, you take all your profits from your first property and move it into the second property. You only pay your closing costs one time, and you pay if you're using a realtor, you pay them one time, and then you get to multiply your profits without having to pay taxes.
Repeat that again, taxes.
Some of us are highly allergic to taxes, and we look for ways to minimize the taxation. So we're always studying the tax code, and whatever the government comes up with, we find ways to continue doing our business and paying as little taxes as possible. Those are taxes, we are supposed to pay. We just don't pay any more than we have to. And we look for ways to minimize it.
So most people would call it a 1031 exchange, right?
That's one aspect of it. That's using Section 1031 of the IRS tax code. One other thing that people could use is Section 121 of the IRS tax code, where they take all the profits from their personal residence and move it into the next property, or they take, if they're married, up to $500,000 profit out of the sale of their first residence and then go buy another one.
That's interesting.
They don't have to pay taxes on that $500,000, by the way.
And that's very interesting for those who might not understand how to use those tax codes. You have to check them out. And the best way to learn is that Bill Tan and quite a few others are doing these classes to teach you how to understand and utilize your options on things that you do in the real estate space. So
let me say something else.
Go ahead.
In exchanging is really a form of barter. That's people do all the time. I give you this for that. You give me a bicycle, I'll give you a purse type thing. I did an exchange meeting at a convention one, and I just did it for the people in there. And one guy exchanged his leather jacket for a boombox right there in front of everybody. Another woman, she took a truck as a down payment for her house.
Now, I understand that because I'm actually doing barter now with crypto thing. We do options. At one of the stories I heard, a gentleman came in and put a Egg McMuffin on the board, and they traded a whole lot of things just because of that Egg McMuffin. And people might say, an Egg McMuffin, no, things like that does happen. It's just something crazy. It's just an ideal, and it's just something that you don't no longer want anymore, and you want to get something new, and you just exchange it, and there's nothing, no hidden things in it. It's just exchange for an exchange. As long as the value is the same, it's no problem.
Well, a really good example would be if you bought 2 Egg McMuffins, you ate one, and you started saying, I'm going to have to watch my waistline here, so I'm not going to eat, it's in my health not to eat this other one. And they haven't eaten since the day before, and they're absolutely starving. They would be willing to give something that they value for that Egg McMuffin, because now they don't have to get in the car, they don't have to drive to wherever, they don't have to wait in line. It's there, and hopefully it's not stale.
Now, one of the things I want you to touch on is that you told a wonderful story about when you was in the juvenile system and how you helped some young men out. Would you please share that with my guest today?
Sure. When I was a probation officer, I dealt with juvenile delinquents, those who were incarcerated. That means they were locked up. And in the LA County system, if they're locked up, it's timeout for them to reevaluate their lives and to learn some new skills, hopefully, and get some new habits. And then we send them back to the hood. And unfortunately, when they go back to the hood, they have their old friends, and many times they just go back to doing the same thing because of the peer pressure. But there were several kids that I would say, hey, look, you go back to your neighborhood, and if you will find me a vacant house, and if I buy it, fix it up, and sell it, and back then I would give them $500. Now the deal was not only did they have to find it for me, they had to tell all their friends to leave it alone while I was fixing up. Don't steal anything while I'm fixing up, and their friends, their homies, shall we say, were more than willing to do that because they knew there was going to be a heck of a party after I sold that property. Well, one of my kids that I sent home, and he actually wasn't even my caseload, he went home and I showed him what to do. Oh, no, this one was my caseload. He went home. He found me 3, and after he did 3, I said, look, you're doing such a good job. From now on, I'm going to give you $1,000 for every one you find for me. And so he kept finding more. After the 7th one, his mother called, sent a letter to the chief probation officer, and thanking me for changing her son's life, showing him that there was another way to make money other than what he'd been doing, which was selling drugs. And so we were all very happy to hear about that. And after a long period of time, though, he gave me a call and he said, Mr. Tanner, just want to let you know that I now own 20 rental houses in Victorville, and I really like this because I don't need a gun to collect rent. And I was highly displeased. If you're live presentation, when I use different words, but I was highly displeased because at that time he had more rental properties than I did.
Well, the fact is that you helped change that kid's life. But the purpose of me asking him to explain that is because it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You can change your life for the better. And if you're not looking so much as the money aspect of it, but looking at finding the deal and building relationships, anything is achievable. So that was one of the main reasons why I wanted him to tell that story, to be able to say, hey, I'm sitting on the couch listening to this right now, or I'm driving in my car and I'm listening, or maybe I'm out for a jog or I'm at the gym and I want to change my life, like most folks say, want to fire their job. As long as you take effort, like I say, Nike got the best slogan in the world, just do something. As long as you're out there doing something, the doors will open up because you will end up running into people that will help you. Right now, we're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be back more with Bill Tan. Thank you for listening to The Real Men in Real Estate.